Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far. So in today's video, I'm finally getting around to summarizing my thoughts on all of these new bronzers and bronzing type products that have been pouring out and flooding our inboxes recently. It has been a bronzer period, hasn't it? I feel like we go through phases in makeup. It's like foundations are suddenly coming out everywhere, then it's tinted moisturizers, then everyone brings out a concealer, then everyone's bringing out blushes, then everyone's bringing out highlights, and now it's bronzer time. Bronzers pouring willy-nilly about the place. So it's taken me a while to gather my thoughts on all these bronzers. One, just because there were so many and I only have one face. And with bronzers, it takes me a while to make up my mind, and certainly takes me a while to make up my mind between the options that we have, especially as a lot of these bronzers that have come out are really nice, great bronzers. There hasn't been that many where it's just been a fail or a pass. They've all been pretty decent or great. So it's taken me a while to actually rank them and choose between them and decide actually which ones I love the most, which are my favorites and which I'm just not reaching for anymore. So I have 8 bronzers to talk about today to compare, and I'm going to be ranking them in order from my least to my most favorite. I really wanted to include the new shade of the Chanel bronzer, the cream bronzer, but it hasn't arrived unfortunately in time, and I go on holiday tomorrow. So unfortunately that one isn't going to be included in this video, but I will update you on my thoughts as soon as it gets here and I've had a chance to try it out. But that one does kind of sit on its own because it is a cream bronzer. It is kind of different from the majority of the products I'm going to be talking to you about. And honestly, if I waited for that one to get here, by the time it got here, another one would have probably come out and we're just never going to get this video up. So I just thought, let's just get on with it, okay? People are waiting. But we do have the Patrick Tart Bronzer Contour Duo, the Nars Cream Bronzer, the Wayne Goss palette, the Gucci, the Dior, the Marc Jacobs, the Charlotte Tilbury and the Victoria Beckham. So, you know, we've got enough to be getting along with, okay? So let's get started. So as I said, we have 8 bronzers, 3, 4, 5, we've got 8 bronzers, just checking my maths there. So in 8th place, which, I feel bad. I feel so sad. I hope they can't hear me. So in 8th place, it is the Patrick Tart Bronzer and Contour Duo. I feel really bad, but someone has to be there, okay? Someone's got to come last. It's just the way it is. But this is a cream contour with a powder bronzer. I picked up 2 shades of this. I have She's Chiselled and She's Sculpted. I originally purchased She's Sculpted, which is the medium shade, the shade that is kind of recommended for like my skin tone, my medium skin tone. But this cream contour was just so ashy crematorium grey on me. I just couldn't use it, so I decided to try the deeper shade to see if that worked better, and it did. The cream contour was much better and the bronzer was fine. I do prefer the bronzer in the lighter palette, which is part of the issue and why I don't love this product as much as I'd hoped, because I just wish the combos were the other way around, or I just wish that the cream contour in the medium palette was not as flippin' cold as ice as it is on my skin tone. I know for lots of people it's worked absolutely fine and great, but for me, on my skin tone, my colouring, etc., it just cannot happen. It can't happen. I look dead. So that's part of the reason why it's in last place. I just can't, there isn't a palette that kind of has a contour and a bronzer in there that I love both products for. And the bronzer, it's nice, it's decent, but it is just okay for me compared to the rest of the bronzers we're going to talk about. I don't love it, and the fact that the colour combos just don't work for me, it just ranks it slightly lower. The bronzer I think actually is quite decent. It's nice on the skin, it's natural looking, it's a nice buildable formula. The cream contour, again, it formula wise works very nicely, easy to blend, easy to apply. But yeah, it just doesn't tickle my pickle as much as some of these others, partly because the colours just don't work for my skin tone, and the combinations of the 2 in a palette definitely don't work for me. So for that reason, it's 8th place, I'm sorry. Next up, the Nars Cream Bronzer. Next up, the Nars Sunkissed Bronzing Cream. I picked up the shade Casino, which is the deeper of 2 shades, because I have the powder what is happening? Because I have the powder Laguna, which is too light for me. It doesn't work on my skin tone, and the colouring is just slightly off on me. So I decided to go for Casino and see if that shade would work better for me. The shade is absolutely perfect. I find the formula really, really nice to work with, but it is very pigmented, and generally I prefer with these cream products to build up than blend out, because otherwise I have to be very careful with the placement of like bronzing and contour products. And this one, it's dangerous because it's just, there's so much pigment. You have to go with a very light hand, and if you don't, you're blending and it's just got nowhere to go, so you end up with bronzer, you know, covering your entire face. So I would prefer it to be slightly less pigmented. If anything, I do prefer a bronzer that I can build up rather than I have to blend out, if that makes sense. But used with a very light hand, this is beautiful on me. It wears really well. It's very skin-like and natural. It kind of dries down to like a more powdered finish, which I like because other products go on top of it really nicely. They don't pick up. And yeah, it's beautiful. The slight reservations about it, why it isn't higher up. One, because it's a cream, and you know me, I'm not really a cream product kind of girl. But the second reason, this is definitely more contour leaning than bronzer leaning. For me, on my skin tone and my undertones, it definitely pulls more of a contour than a bronzer. So I don't use it that often. I definitely prefer that type of product to be in like a stick form, just because I can be more precise and keep it where I want it. But the formula, the shade and everything and the performance of it, I really enjoy. But I won't reach for it as much as some of these others just because it is a cream and that's just not my personal bag. Next up in 6th place, it's the Wayne Goss Bronzer and Contour Duo. I really like this. I really especially like the bronzer. I picked up, I think, the medium shade, which is Satin Bronze is the name. I really, really loved this and was actually super surprised and impressed because I hadn't had the best experience with my first Wayne Goss product. This one, the bronzer, definitely performed very beautifully on the skin. I love the luminous finish to the bronzer. I find it very smooth and beautiful and very buildable. I love the undertone. The contour, I don't love as much as the bronzer, but it is still very nice. The one issue I have with it is it's quite loose in the pan. So when you dab your brush in there, and you know, contour, I don't want to use a lot of contour. I want a very subtle, soft, tiny amount, especially when using a powder. And this one, I find it very hard not to pick up too much on the brush because it is a slightly looser formula. So, you know, I have to be very light with my brush and tapping it off. And even then, sometimes it will apply too much. So it's not the easiest for me to use. The reason it's slightly lower down than I might have expected when I first used it is that the bronzer is starting to hard pan. I've only probably used this 3 or 4 times, and it has got this really rough like coat on the top of it. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on there. The bronzer has got this kind of rough hard pan layer on the top of it now that is slightly irritating. So that's another reason why it's slightly lower down. I just don't know how well it's going to continue to perform now that that's happened, and that was very quick for that to happen. I'm not really sure why that would happen so quickly. It does have a 9-month shelf life, this bronzer, so maybe that's why. Maybe that's just the way it is going to go off and go bad really quickly, which is disappointing because it's expensive and there's a huge amount of product in there. It's 16.5 grams. So, you know, over 8 grams of product in both sides of the pan. You're just never going to get through that in the shelf life. So for me, that's why it kind of formula-wise, colour, performance, I loved it, and it might have been a couple spots higher, but I can't use it up in 2 months, which is as long as it's taken for that to get that hard pan on it. So for that reason, it's definitely dropped a few spaces. And for that reason, I can't really recommend this anymore because I don't know anyone who's going to get enough use out of this before that starts to happen. Maybe it's only mine. Maybe I just got a bit of a dud. So please let me know if you have this and you've had it a while and you've used it a few times, whether that's happened to you. Maybe I've just got a dud. So let us know in the comments down below. Now in 5th place, one that used to be a lot higher until some of these others came along. So this may surprise some of you, but it is the Gucci bronzer. I think this is beautiful. What you will notice is that all of the bronzers that come above this one are matte, and this is a very luminous bronzer. So what I'm saying to you, is that I prefer a matte bronzer these days. I think I use very luminous, glowy, dewy skin products. My foundation, my primers, I use highlight, I like a glowy blush. So for me, I've definitely found that to give some balance and light and shade and to not just look like one shiny Tin Man, I like a matte bronzer. It just works for me and my preferences better. This is a very natural, beautiful luminosity. I love the undertone of this. It's perfect for what I like. I like that I can use it winter and summer because it is buildable and I can build it up as much as I want or not, depending on how much sun I've caught, whether I'm more tanned or fairer, then this will still work for me. And I love that red undertone that this particular shade has. I love the packaging. I love the fact that it's refillable, which saves us money, which we always like to see. But yeah, for me, it's just been kind of trumped a little bit by the fact that I prefer the finish of some of these other bronzers I'm going to talk about. But this is definitely my favourite, more luminous bronzer. So if you are looking for a luminous bronzer, this is the top dog for me. As you'll see, the others I'm going to talk about are all matte. Who'd have thought it? So in fourth place, a newcomer that has skyrocketed up the rankings, and it is the Dior bronzer. I have two shades of this bronzer. You'll see me swatch shades 6 and 7 in this bronzer. I think my favourite shade at the moment is definitely 7. That's the warmer of the two bronzers, but the finish on both of these, the performance on both of these is just beautiful. This is probably the most natural of the bronzers that I'm going to talk to you about today. Just so skin-like, natural finish, very undetectable on the skin. If you're asking me which is the most natural, softest of all the bronzers I'm going to talk to you about today, it would be the Dior. That's the one I would recommend if you're looking for the most natural, skin-like, understated, subtle effect. Then this is the one that I would go for. This packaging is to die for. I love that there's very little fragrance in here. It's not as overwhelming as, say, the Gucci can be for some people with the waft of fragrance whenever you even look at the compact. This is definitely a very subtle, soft fragrance. I'm getting a lot of use out of here. You can see the Dior logo has almost completely disappeared. It's definitely one that I reach for time and time again, and I've really been enjoying it. It is newer to my collection. It's definitely got the potential to rise a spot or maybe two, but yeah, for me, it's just very easy. It does take a lot of time for me to get the bronze effect that I want because it's very natural, very buildable, but I'd much rather go that way than apply a lot and have to work it out. So yeah, for me, this is a real easy go-to natural day bronzer and one that I reach for a lot. It's definitely gone in my top drawer is what I'm saying. So we're on to the podium, the top three, the medal winners, if you will. And in third place, a very oldie but a goodie. It's the Marc Jacobs. I love this bronzer. It's so beautiful. There's just something so special about the colour, the finish, the effect this gives you. This definitely has a bit of scent in it, a punch of scent. I personally love it. It smells like coconuts, holiday, sun cream, that sort of smell. As soon as I open it, I'm on a beach somewhere. I don't know why I'd be applying makeup on a beach, but who's to say? Who can tell? I love the big fat mirror in here. I love the huge big pan that you can really get a giant brush right up in there, which, you know, is something that I personally just love. I think it's a very, very natural, again, very natural, buildable formula. It's not something that you have to be careful with. You just can apply as much or as little as you want. I love the undertone of this is chef's kiss for me. It's got a bit of red, that red tone that I love because it suits my undertone and it mimics the shade that I go when I pick up sun. It's almost the exact colour of my shoulder already. So yeah, this for me gives me a very natural colour tone and just gives me a very bronzy goddess look. I love the fact that it is matte, but it doesn't look heavy or false on the skin. It still looks like skin. So this is a winner for me. There's definitely rumours around that Marc Jacobs is discontinuing their makeup line, but it seems to be up for debate. There's definitely differing reports, but you know what I'm like. If something gets discontinued, if this disappears, I'll just, you know, mourn it for a period of 1 to 2 weeks and move on with my life. I'm not someone who recommends buying 10 just in case it gets discontinued, because it's in third place, you know. So I will just continue, move on with my life and have fond memories if that were to happen. But just a heads up that it may or may not be going somewhere. Who knows? Now, in second place, a bronzer that continually battles it out with the Marc Jacobs to be my number one, but it is the Charlotte Tilbury. Now, like I said, between the Marc Jacobs and the Charlotte Tilbury, these have been my number 1 and 2 since the Charlotte Tilbury came along, really. The Gucci was kind of always there or thereabouts. I just recently kind of moved away from using such a luminous bronzer. So the Marc Jacobs and the Charlotte Tilbury very much became my 1 and 2. And it just kind of depends how I'm feeling, where I'm at, which I feel like reaching for. I definitely prefer this packaging of the Charlotte Tilbury. I love the fact that Charlotte Tilbury, again, is refillable. I live for a free refill. I just can't get enough, especially at Nando's. I just live for a free refill. I just can't get enough. I love it. I love a good money saving tip. But yeah, this one, again, really nice big pan. Get a huge big brush in there, lovely big mirror. Just the undertone of this is, again, that red. You can see how red that tone is in there. Very nice and warm, but leaning red rather than orange, which is perfect for me. This, again, it can definitely get picked up a lot on a brush. So you can get that whole like, oh, whoa, it's a lot of pigment, and then have to blend out. But you can also use this very lightly, just with a lighter press rather than a swirl, a press with your brush. And you will find then it's very easy to use with a light hand and build up and blend. It blends like an absolute dream. It's like silk on the skin, just such a smooth, perfecting finish to it. I just love everything about this. This is in my project pan for the year, and unless it's like a bottomless pit, I'm confident I will be hitting pan on this. This I've had for a very long time, and it's got a lot of use, and there is not a hint of a hard pan or a rough edge anywhere. So that is what I expect from a bronzer. And this one has a 24-month shelf life. So you see the problem with the Wayne Goss having, you know, they're roughly the same amount of product in here, by the way, 16 grams in the Charlotte Tilbury, 16.5, but that's between the 2 pans in the Wayne Goss. And this has got a 2-year shelf life to a 9-month shelf life. So if you're just wanting to get the best out of a product for as long as possible, you can see why this is ranked so much higher. And now in first place, and you must presumably be shook because I haven't even spoken about this product on my channel. I actually wasn't even planning on picking it up. The only reason I did really is, 1, lots of you guys were asking me about it, and 2, I just felt like in order for this video to be as helpful as possible, this one really needed to be included. So I just ordered it on a whim, really, not really thinking it was going to be that exciting, not really thinking it was going to be that great, but just wanting to make sure that you guys had as much information on as many of the new products that have come out as possible. But also you guys were really asking me about this. You were very curious about it, and I can only thank you, because number 1 is the Victoria Beckham bronzer and contour duo. This is the product that I have on today. I have the bronzer and the contour very lightly used on my cheeks today. So I picked up the shade 4. If you don't know, this is a bronze and contour duo, much like the Wayne Goss, much like the Patrick Tar, but both products are powder, like the Wayne Goss, not like the Patrick Tar, which has a cream contour. So this is the bronzer here, and this is the contour. They are both super natural on the skin, almost like not almost, fully undetectable. You can't see where you've applied and where you haven't. It's the most gorgeous natural wash. It has this beautiful, seamless, matte but very natural finish, and it is just the most beautiful tone to it. It's so natural. It does have the warmth that I like, but it's not too warm. It's definitely not too cool either. The bronzer is just so natural. It's got warmth to it, but it's not too warm. It's also not leaning into becoming a contour being too cool and having to be careful with the placement. The contour as well, there's just no sort of real of that super cool grey tone in there. It's just very, very natural. They blend together beautifully. They're not too loosely pressed, so I don't have to be too careful in there. I don't need too much product. I said push your brush in rather than a swirl for sure in both products, but your brush just picks up the perfect amount. It's not dumping a load of product onto your brush and therefore you have to go very, very careful. It's very easy. There's really no kick up, and you can just build and build as much as you like, and it never looks powdery. I think a lot of these bronzers, because they're matte, because they're powder, if you apply them and you set your face with powder and you've got a powder highlight and powder blush and powder contour and powder bronzer, you can get that very powdered heavy look. This just does not look like powder on the skin. It's like it melts into the skin and becomes one with the skin, and you just don't have any like powdered residue left on the top. The bronzer and the contour blend together like a dream. I absolutely list this packaging. It's very heavy, weighty and firm. Like you have to, you know, give it a good squeeze to get that to close. It feels like an expensive clutch. This is the type of packaging I expect for this price point. I want a really firm, expensive feeling, stands on its own, feels heavy in my hand, has a beautiful mirror that looks very classy, has gorgeous external packaging, feels like what it costs. This also is refillable, which I love because you never have to pay that hefty price tag, which is partly to buy the packaging. You will only have to pay that once and then you can just buy the refills, which I love. The packaging was really nice. The shipping was great. I was very impressed. It's my first purchase in the brand and it would definitely talk me into making more. So far, I'm absolutely loving it and it is my current #1. So finally, here are all the swatches in a row for you. We have the Patrick Tar. This is the lighter contour and bronzer. The deeper contour and bronzer. I put the two cream contours next to each other so you could see, but this is the lighter and the deeper Patrick Tar duo. Then we've got the Nars cream bronzer. Then we've got the Wayne Goss bronzer and contour. Then we have the Gucci. Then we've got shade 6 and shade 7 of the Dior. Then we have the Marc Jacobs. Then we've got the Charlotte Tilbury. And then finally the Victoria Beckham bronzer and contour. So there you have it. That is my roundup and my rankings of all of these bronzers that have just been knocking down my door recently. As I said, I'm really sorry I didn't get to include the Chanel, just didn't have the time to get to know it well enough to include it here, but I will of course update you on my feelings and how I'm getting on with that one as soon as it is here and I've had a chance to use it a few times and get together my thoughts on it. I hope this was helpful. I'd love to see you in a future video. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.